In Spokane County, evacuation alerts did not feel like a slow warning. For many people, the fire lines seemed to move faster than the time they had to pack. The real question is not only what burned, it is how a community can be forced to empty in hours. At first, the danger can look distant: smoke on the horizon, a glow behind a ridge, a phone notification that may or may not mean your street. Then the situation changes shape. Smoke becomes an alert becomes a decision becomes a line of vehicles moving away from homes, animals, documents, medicine, photographs, and everything that cannot fit in a car. You may have already seen the Spokane evacuation clips: red zones spreading across maps, smoke columns rising behind neighborhoods, quiet streets turning into exit routes, emergency graphics making the situation look simple: fire here, people there, leave now. But the real story is not that simple. A wildfire evacuation is not just a moment when someone tells people to go. It is a chain of judgment under pressure: fire behavior, wind, visibility, road access, changing boundaries, official alerts, and residents trying to understand whether the threat is still far away or already at the edge of their lives. Some viral coverage of the Spokane fires used catastrophic language. Some titles pointed to thousands of acres burned, homes destroyed, and thousands of people evacuated. Those claims may come from fast-moving reports or official updates, but they cannot become the backbone of this story unless they are verified. This film is not built as a disaster countdown. It is a reconstruction of speed. How does a place move from ordinary routines to urgent evacuation so quickly? Why do warnings that are meant to create time sometimes feel as if they arrive when time is already running out? And what was happening before the emergency became visible to everyone watching online? To understand the Spokane evacuation story, we have to start with a simple fact: the emergency was not experienced as an abstract headline. It was experienced as a changing sky, a phone alert, a road decision, and a question that had to be answered quickly: stay or leave now. The confirmed focus here is the evacuation pressure around the Spokane wildfires and the way recent evacuation footage captured public attention. The broader explanation comes from wildfire behavior in general, especially in places where homes, roads, open land, and dry vegetation meet. In fast-moving wildfire situations, the danger is not only the wall of flame people imagine from dramatic video. Wind can push heat and embers ahead of the visible fire. Dry grass, brush, and trees can give those embers new places to start. Terrain can shape smoke and flame in ways that are hard to judge from a driveway or a passing car. A road that looks open in one moment can become risky later if smoke thickens, visibility drops, or emergency vehicles need access. This is why evacuation timelines can feel compressed. Officials may be trying to create time by issuing warnings before flames are close, but to the person receiving the alert, the danger may not feel real until the sky changes color, ash begins to fall, or neighbors start loading cars. By then, every small action consumes minutes. Finding pets consumes time. Calling relatives consumes time. Grabbing documents consumes time. Checking a map consumes time. Choosing a route consumes time. Waiting behind other vehicles consumes time. Each action is reasonable. Each one may be necessary, but all of them draw from the same shrinking clock. This is also why evacuation footage travels so quickly online. It turns an invisible chain of decisions into something viewers can understand instantly. A map changes color. A fire line moves closer. A car pulls away. Smoke fills the horizon. Even without verified final totals, the images create a powerful question: how much time did people really have? That question is one reason recent Spokane evacuation videos found an audience. The strongest clips and titles emphasized emergency alerts, state of emergency framing, damaged neighborhoods, and people leaving under pressure. But that interest has to be framed carefully. Keyword demand appears thin, so this is not a story about a massive search trend. It is more modest and more specific. Dramatic evacuation footage gave viewers a vivid window into a local emergency, and that creates the contradiction at the center of the story. Evacuation orders are designed to create time, but in fast-moving fire conditions, the public may experience them as if they arrive at the last possible moment. Then an evacuation becomes a race. Most people do not experience it as one clean command. They experience it as a sequence, a message that says, "Be ready," a map that changes color, a neighbor loading a car, smoke that was once on the horizon now pressing into the street. Then the language changes. Prepare becomes leave. Leave becomes go now. In wildfire emergencies, that escalation is supposed to turn danger into action. But from inside a home, with information changing and minutes passing, it can feel less like a plan and more like a countdown. That is the heart of the Spokane evacuation story. Not simply that people left, but that the window for leaving seemed to narrow with frightening speed. In general wildfire response, advisories are meant to alert residents before the most dangerous moment arrives. Warnings can signal that conditions are worsening, routes may become limited, or officials want people ready to move. A go now order is different. It means waiting may increase risk, and the safest decision is immediate movement away from the threatened area. For viewers watching from far away, those words can sound simple. For residents, they can trigger a dozen decisions at once. What papers matter most? Are the pets in the car? Is there fuel? Which route is open? Where is the shelter? Who needs a call before the network gets crowded? Is there time to help a neighbor? Is there time to go back for one more thing? None of those questions is dramatic on its own. Together, they consume the one thing everyone is trying to protect: time. This is why footage from Spokane and nearby communities became so compelling. A fire perimeter or alert map turns an invisible decision system into something visible. Red zones appear, roads fill, sirens and phone alerts create urgency. Smoke changes the look of familiar neighborhoods. A line on a map suddenly becomes a question for every household inside it. The audience may not know the official timeline, the weather details, or the exact sequence of orders, but the audience understands movement. People understand vehicles leaving. They understand the strange fear of packing while the sky changes. That visual tension is what made simple angles like wildfire evacuation in Spokane so powerful. But the deeper story begins where raw footage ends. Footage can show cars moving away from danger. It cannot always show why the evacuation compressed into hours. It cannot show every update officials were weighing. It cannot show every road constraint, every shift in visibility, or every uncertainty residents faced while deciding whether to wait or leave. It also cannot prove the biggest viral claims by itself. Large damage totals, broad evacuation counts, and catastrophic language all need verification from official or reputable reporting before they become part of the factual record. What the footage can show is pressure. In a wildfire evacuation, officials may be trying to stay ahead of the fire, while residents are trying to understand whether the threat is immediate. Conditions on the ground may be changing faster than either side wants. That convergence is where order can begin to feel like chaos, not because one simple failure explains everything, but because alerts, roads, smoke, maps, shelters, human hesitation all meet in the same narrow corridor of time. So if evacuations are meant to be planned, what forces can make a planned system feel sudden, chaotic, and incomplete? The answer begins with the fire line that everyone could see, and the decisions most people could not. On screen, the story can appear almost mathematical. A red boundary, a shaded evacuation zone, a road leading away from smoke, a cluster of homes near the edge. It feels as if the danger has been drawn clearly enough for everyone to understand. But in a fast-moving wildfire, a map is not the fire itself. It is a snapshot of a changing emergency. By the time that image reaches phones, televisions, and social feeds, the situation on the ground may already be moving again. This is why the Spokane evacuation images carried such force. They gave viewers something they could instantly read: smoke rising behind neighborhoods, vehicles pulling away from threatened areas, alert graphics spreading across screens, perimeter-style maps that made the fire look both contained by lines and impossible to ignore. For a documentary, These images become the spine of the story because they show the public version of the crisis. They show the moment when private decisions become visible: a family leaving a driveway, a road filling with traffic, a plume becoming large enough that nobody can pretend it is only distant haze. But visual evidence has a weakness: it is gripping, and it is incomplete. Some viral coverage leaned into catastrophic framing. Some titles claimed thousands of acres burned, homes destroyed, and large numbers of people evacuated. Some emphasized a state of emergency, which immediately tells viewers that the event has moved beyond a small local incident. Those phrases attract attention because they compress a complicated situation into a recognizable frame. A state of emergency signals escalation. It suggests emergency coordination, resource pressure, official urgency, and systems being stretched. But even that framing has limits. It does not automatically tell us the exact acreage burned, the exact number of homes lost, or the exact number of people who left. That distinction matters because numbers become anchors in the viewer's memory. Once a dramatic figure is spoken in narration, it can sound permanent, even if it began as an early update, a video title, or a fast-moving report. So the responsible version of this story separates what is known from what still needs checking. What is known from the research behind this film is that Spokane wildfire evacuation videos drew strong viewer attention. The footage, maps, and urgency pulled people in. What still requires production verification are the final damage totals, fire size, evacuation counts, state of emergency details, and the official sequence of alerts. For viewers watching from far away, the fire line becomes the story. But for people inside the alert zones, the real story is the space between updates, the minutes spent waiting for the next message, the uncertainty about which road is still usable. The question of whether smoke means immediate danger or only a warning of what could come next. The map makes the emergency look fixed. The lived experience is fluid. That is why this story cannot simply repeat the loudest viral framing. The deeper question is not only how big the fire became or how many structures were reported damaged. It is how an emergency became visible to the public only after a chain of observations, warnings, decisions, and movement was already underway. The fire line nobody could ignore was not just a line on a map. It was the point where official information, public fear, and fast-changing conditions collided. And that leads to the hardest part of the reconstruction. Why does the warning window feel like it collapses? In many wildfire situations, the answer is not one dramatic failure. It is not one single moment. It is a chain of smaller changes that stack on top of each other until the time looked available on a map no longer exists on the ground. The first force is fire behavior itself. As general wildfire science, not a Spokane-specific conclusion, wind can turn a dangerous fire into a moving boundary. A shift in direction can push smoke, heat, and embers toward areas that did not appear to be in the immediate path. Embers matter because wildfire does not always advance like a clean wall. Burning material can travel ahead of the visible flame front, landing in dry grass, near fences, along roadsides, or on structures. That means danger can appear in more than one place at once. The evacuation map may have to change because the fire has changed. Dry fuel can compress the timeline further. In simple terms, dry vegetation gives fire more to consume and less resistance as it spreads. That does not prove exactly what happened in every Spokane evacuation zone, and it should not be treated as a completed investigation. But in fast-moving wildfire conditions, dry grass, brush, and timber can make the difference between a warning that feels early, a warning that suddenly feels urgent. Then comes the geography of leaving. Every evacuation depends on roads, intersections, driveways, visibility, and the number of vehicles trying to move at the same time. A road that feels ordinary on a calm afternoon can become a bottleneck when smoke thickens and whole neighborhoods begin making the same decision. Even without panic, the system slows down. People merge, people stop to check directions. Some turn around, some wait for relatives, some try to avoid smoke. Others are pulling trailers, carrying pets, or helping someone who cannot leave quickly. This is where the human side becomes just as important as the physical fire. Many people do not leave at the first sign of smoke because smoke is ambiguous. It can look close when it is far away, and far away when the wind is about to bring it closer. A phone alert may say one thing, a map may show another, a neighbor may be saying something different. The mind looks for confirmation. Is the road still open? Is this really our zone? Do we have 5 minutes or 30? What do we take? Those questions are understandable, but each one consumes time. Checking an alert consumes time. Calling family consumes time. Finding medication, documents, keys, chargers, clothes, animal carriers, and fuel consumes time. Deciding whether to leave before flames are visible consumes time. When thousands of private decisions meet the same narrow road network, the warning window can seem to collapse from both directions. The fire is moving closer while the route out is moving slower. Communication can also become part of the pressure. This is not a claim of negligence, it is a general reality of emergencies. Messages have to be written, approved, sent, received, understood, and acted on. Boundaries can change. Some people may miss alerts, others may receive them but hesitate because the danger is not visible from their driveway. In that gap between official urgency and personal certainty, minutes disappear. So the real question is not only why people had to leave, it is what made the evacuation speed feel so extreme. Was it mainly fire behavior, public hesitation, communication limits, infrastructure pressure, or a combination that no single video can show? That uncertainty is what makes the Spokane story more than a disaster clip. It is a case study in how fast normal life can be reorganized by danger. A road that was just a route to work becomes an exit corridor. A neighborhood map becomes a boundary line. A phone notification becomes the difference between waiting and leaving. Ordinary geography turns into an emergency map. That is why this story held attention beyond the first wave of footage. It is not only about what burned, it is about how fast a familiar place can become unfamiliar and how little time people may feel they have once the warning reaches them. The strongest titles around this story work because they point toward that pressure. Inside the Spokane Wildfire Evacuations is not just a promise of dramatic video. It asks what was happening behind the alert zones, the traffic, the smoke, and the decisions made under stress. The fire that emptied Spokane County is powerful because it captures movement and urgency, but it should not be treated as a literal claim unless a verified record defines exactly who was ordered out, from where and when. That distinction matters. Viral wildfire coverage often moves faster than verification. Reported acreage, destroyed structure counts, evacuation totals, and state of emergency language can become part of the public story before. Viewers know what has been confirmed and what still needs checking. The responsible takeaway is not to repeat the biggest number or the most frightening phrase. It is to understand the evacuation pressure itself. Fast-changing fire conditions can compress choices. Smoke can hide what is happening. Roads can fill. Alerts can change. Families can lose valuable minutes deciding what matters most. By the time the fire line appears on a screen, the real timeline may already be moving. That is the next layer of the Spokane story. Only an official reconstruction, built from verified timelines, evacuation maps, fire reports, and public alerts, can show exactly when warnings were issued, zones changed, and how much time residents truly had. A deeper breakdown should follow the confirmed record, not just the viral version, because the most important question is still waiting inside those hours.